Welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna go over numbers from last week. I grossed $9,000 last week, but just like 9,000, just because I grossed 9,000 doesn't mean that I took home 9,000. I had some expenses that came out, some fuel, which is pretty much a variable cost, and then I also had some fixed costs that hit last week. So we're gonna go over those numbers, every load I ran. Then we'll go over all the fixed costs. Then we'll come up with the number what I was left with at the end of the week. Let's start with the loads. Load number one I picked up in Memphis that went down to Mineola, Texas. That load paid me $2,200 for 395 loaded miles. Then I had deadheaded from Mineola, Texas to pick up my next load. It picked up in Malvern, Arkansas that went down to Huntington, Tennessee. That load, it paid me $1,800 for 300 loaded miles. The load number three, I deadheaded from Huntington down to Blytheville, Arkansas to Monroe. That load went down to Monroe, Louisiana. It paid me $1,700 for 328 loaded miles. Then I deadheaded from Monroe, Louisiana to El Dorado, Arkansas, and that load, it went down to Blytheville, Tennessee. That load, it paid $1,700 for 300 loaded miles. And then I deadheaded from from Brownsville, Tennessee, back down to Memphis, and then I took that load down to Fort Smith. It paid me $1,600 for 290 loaded miles. Now let's talk about the miles, because just looking at the loaded miles doesn't really tell the whole story. I had 1,613 loaded miles, but I also had 505 deadhead miles. I know that 505 deadhead miles, it's kind of high, but the reason why it's kind of high because I like to get home pretty much 2 or 3 times a week. So my deadhead, as we go over these loads in the future, my deadhead is pretty much is going to be high. This actually is kind of like a low week for me, because normally I run probably like 1,000 miles deadhead, because I like to get home every other day, pretty much every other day, and then off on the weekends. So that bring my mileage up to 2,118 miles. Based on pretty much based on all miles, the truck grossed about $4.25 per mile. That's the number you need to pay attention to. That's the number you pretty much want to pay attention to. All miles, not just loaded miles. So when somebody, get on the internet talking about, oh yeah, I'm running for $6 a mile, ask them, is that gross or is that all miles? Now the part that matter, expenses. Now let's start taking away the money from the $9,000, because I had a few things come out. I had some variable costs, and I also had some fixed costs that came out. First thing, let's go over the variable costs, which is pretty much my fuel and my maintenance. My fuel was my biggest cost, which I spent $2,194 on fuel for the week. Then my maintenance, I had a power steering line that was leaking fluid out of, which I replaced the line. Then I added some power steering fluid, and that came out to $135, which I had repaired myself. So that's why that's kind of low. Then I had some fixed costs that came out, which is my insurance. My insurance was $1,540. With my insurance, I got 2 trucks on there, and then I have 1 trailer onto the policy. That's why it's a little high. Plus, I had truck parking. I parked my truck on a lot. They charge $220 a month. Then I use 2 load boards, which is DAT load board. Then I use Truckstop, which Truckstop haven't came out of my account yet. I think it come out like next week or week after next. But DAT, they took $54. Then I had Google Workspace, which is my email, pretty much my business email. It was just a measly $37. So here's where everything ended up. The truck grossed $9,000. I drove 2,118 total miles. My total expenses were $4,180. That left me with $4,820 before taxes. This is exactly why I don't look at gross, is because, my truck, it made a gross $9,000 for the week. That sounds good and all, but you gotta take out those expenses. It wasn't a bad week. I consider it was a decent week for me. I was aiming for $10,000 this week. I didn't quite get it, but I came close to it. That's all the numbers. I ended up with $4,820. If y'all like seeing the actual numbers behind running the truck, like, comment, and subscribe below. And I keep showing the numbers, weekly. I try to shoot a video weekly, to update you how the journey is going. I guess I'll see you on the next one. Peace.